Music licensing reimagined.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining me again for another edition of my True Crime Obsession. Before I get started tonight, I just wanted to thank everyone for last week. Last week, I interviewed John Ray, attorney John Ray. He is the attorney that represents possible LISC victims Shannon Gilbert and Jessica Taylor. And last week's episode has gotten over 2,000 views. So I wanted to thank everyone for that, for all of you that watched the podcast, those of you that sent in questions, comments. I also wanted to share with everyone that John Ray has a charity that is very near and dear to his heart. And it's called the Magdalene Dismas Society. And I will post a picture here on this podcast. There is a GoFundMe page, and I will be sure to include the links for the GoFundMe page. But I just wanted to thank everyone, and for those of you that are as passionate about the LISC serial killer and about this case that John talked about last week, if you'd like to make a charitable contribution to the Magdalene Dismas Society, I know that he would appreciate that, and it's a very worthy cause, and it goes to victims that he works on behalf of. So thank you. And getting into tonight's episode, I'd like to welcome into the studio David Adamovich, okay? And he is not only a professional knife thrower and magician, but he also has one of the largest collections of some macabre serial killer memorabilia. So, and his website is serialkillermemorabilia.com. Again, that's serialkillermurderabilia.com. So welcome, David.
Hello.
Okay.
And let me just correct you,
Yes,
please.
okay.
I'm a knife thrower,
Okay.
not a magician.
Okay.
I work with magicians, but I don't identify as a magician.
Okay. All right. So I
Okay,
stand
good.
corrected. I apologize about
right.
that. All right.
We
So
fight about that all
thank
the
you
time.
so much for coming into the studio. For my podcast, I usually tend to focus on the victims and true crime, crime victims' rights. But I know that, as somebody who does that, it's very hard to really understand these cases unless we really go back and look at the killers and kind of understand the psychology of the killers. And obviously there is a growing favoritism towards true crime these days. If you turn on cable, all these shows are dedicated to true crime. The ID channel, the Reels channel, Netflix coming out with all these things about serial killers. So I can understand possibly, your fascination with true crime, because it is something that's definitely, across, we look society, we look at how people are fascinated by that. So let me just ask you, when did you first start getting into this with collecting certain memorabilia?
Okay. And just so you understand,
Yes.
I'm not a collector,
Oh, okay.
and I didn't buy anything in the collection individually.
Okay.
I am a friend, a lifelong, quite a long time friend, of the guy and his wife, Richard and Barbara Magic,
Okay.
a.k.a. Richard Dickstein, a.k.a. Barbara Nista. They went by a few names over time.
Okay.
Who did the collecting over some 20-year period while Richie was a corrections officer up in Yonkers.
Oh, okay. Very
and
nice.
Then, and I also make it clear, because they made me swear to make it clear that his collecting was done entirely on his off time after he left the job.
Okay.
He would go home, take off his uniform, sit down at his desk, start writing letters, deal with his mail. But because he was a corrections officer, he knew the system. So he knew how to write to these people, who to contact, etc.
Okay.
But his collecting was done at home,
Okay.
off the job.
And he shared that with you.
Yes, he made that very clear to me.
Okay.
Not to confuse and
Okay.
put the
Okay.
two together.
It's good to know. Thank you. I'm glad you clarified that. So, yes, I appreciate that. So when did you start? At what age did this all come about?
Okay.
When did you start to really get into this?
I wrote the dates down just to
Okay.
be sure.
Sure.
Because every time I'm asked, then I forget. Let's see. Okay. Richie started collecting around 1992,
Okay.
and he collected for about 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then he stopped collecting. He retired from the force, corrections officer. He retired as a sergeant, and then he just devoted his life to being a magician
Okay.
and changed his name to Richie Magic, and that's how we met.
Okay.
And then we did some shows together. We became friends, and he actually died in 2018.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So it was around 2018 that I made an offer to his wife Barbara
Mm-hmm.
that I would do my best to keep the collection whole, not necessarily what we call cherry pick the sales.
Okay.
There are some people that I know here on Long Island that are collectors,
Yes.
good collectors of this
Okay.
content, and they have specific interest in a specific criminal, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that selling them that piece is augmenting their collection.
Yes.
They're not just
Yes.
a flesh in the pan collector that
Sure.
has to have a John Wayne Gacy.
Mm-hmm.
So this one guy has like 2 or 3 of them.
Okay.
So he, it means something to him as his collection,
Sure.
not just to have that one John Wayne Gacy and nothing else.
Okay. Okay.
When I say Gacy, I'm referring to Pogo the Clown.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the
yes.
iconic,
yes. Yes.
piece.
That's what he's obviously better known as.
So since I've had the collection, we've done several little art shows.
Okay.
One was a murder mystery dinner thing,
Okay. Interesting.
and it was set up in the lobby so people would come out and see it and like, whoa, that's Bundy's hair. Yes, that's Bundy's hair
Ugh.
when he was shaved for execution.
Wow.
That knife that I showed you before
Yes.
has an interesting story.
Well, let's talk about that. Do you want to hold it up and show it? And
Okay.
oh, okay.
Well, this is a rather long bladed knife, and it is the sister. It's the best way I can describe it.
Sure.
Knife to the
You
exact.
might just want to point that way.
I'm good with knives. Don't worry. I'm very good with knives.
I know you are actually. Yes.
To that,
This stuff kind of freaks me out a
to
little
the
bit.
one that
Okay.
O.J. Simpson bought just before his wife happened to have been decapitated.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
You can put 2 and 2 together.
Sure.
It's not too difficult. Why would he suddenly walk into a store and buy a knife with a blade like that?
So it's
a
the
couple
same
days
exact
before?
store,
Same store.
same store,
There was
same
this
model.
was the last one. The one that OJ bought was, I think, the one before the last, and this was the last one that was on the shelf.
And that was purchased. Do you know when he purchased that knife?
Sometime after everything became quite famous,
Yes.
Richie got right on the horn, contacted the store, and
Okay, but
and bought that
did
knife.
OJ? Do you know for a fact if OJ had purchased it within like a week?
No, I don't. I don't
Oh,
know.
okay.
I don't
All
know
right.
the exact
So
date.
yes, okay.
But so that's
Uh-huh.
an interesting one.
Okay.
Let me see if I can close it without taking my fingers
Well,
off.
no, you
It's
don't
a
have
tough
to
one
for my
close.
benefit.
I'll close it later. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we don't
you
need
have to push
to.
this thing in really hard.
Okay.
So they're easy to open, easy to use, but damn hard to close.
Alrighty then. So, is there anything you considered prized in that collection, or your friend considered his most valuable piece, or something he really sought out to have?
Let me divide the collection into some categories
Okay.
because each of them have their significance.
Sure.
There's 9,000 letters. 425 from David Berkowitz alone.
Wow.
Those I've scanned all the letters, and there's about 40,000 scans, like that had gone through the printer that have a face that you can look at something on,
Sure.
not the back of a blank envelope, but the face of the envelope would be a scan, a 2-sided letter or a 1-sided letter. 40,000. There is clothing.
Yeah,
This,
let's
for
talk about
example-
that.
I'll hold this up.
Sure.
This rather enormous sweatshirt and sweatpants. To give you an idea how big the person was that wore this. I'll
Wow.
stand and put
Yes. Yes.
it. They were on the at my shoe length, but look where the waist is.
Yes.
Okay,
Wow.
this was a very big man.
Very tall,
very
assuming. Yes.
tall,
as well.
powerful man
Mhm.
who took it upon himself to pick up a barbell and smash Jeffrey Dahmer to death. This is the prison clothing of Christopher Scarver.
Yeah.
So that's part of the clothing. A lot of the clothing.
Now let me
also-
ask you
Yeah, go
something.
ahead.
Can you hold that shirt up again? Because I
Yeah.
did notice something as you held the shirt up, and I have to ask. So I noticed that there was a stain on the shirt. Has this clothing been washed since he acquired it? Like I'm looking at that stain
No.
right there.
Probably not.
So you're saying that that might actually be a blood stain?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Or some
Alrighty.
just sloppy food.
Okay.
You do recall.
All right.
Scarver became famous because he's the one that murdered Dahmer in prison.
Mhm.
But there's several reasons behind it. One of them was, so the story goes, that Dahmer used to cut his food into little people shapes. And Christopher Scarver didn't like that. It pissed him off. And, and among many other reasons, it's one of the things that Christopher had against Dahmer. So.
Okay.
And another interesting story, there was a nice documentary about him on TV a while ago.
Oh,
If it was
you're talking
Netflix
about
or something.
yes, it was.
Okay, it must have been the Dahmer one, but
Yes.
it ended, toward the end, it moved into this whole thing, was what happened with Scarver.
Yes.
And,
Okay.
I think there's some controversy over whether or not the prison actually put him up to it.
Mm-hmm.
And as such, they made promises to him
Mm-hmm.
about how they would take care of him.
Okay.
Now, when you go back and look at the letters between Christopher and Richard, if there's that thick,
Mm-hmm.
that much of them have to do with Christopher Scarver complaining about how the prison did not keep up their terms of the deal and that they're shuffling him around and treating him nasty. And he's trying to get Richie to contact more lawyers and whatever to come to Christopher Scarver's defense
Okay.
in having the prisons meet the things that they said they were going to do for him.
Okay.
So that's just, it's an interesting
Sure,
sideline in
sure.
that whole story,
Mm-hmm.
that this murderer
Mm-hmm.
feels he has certain rights that he needs protected, even though he might have he very well was the person that did it, but maybe the issue was why he did it and how it was set up to be done,
Okay.
that he had issues with afterward.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, has a story.
Yeah, I would imagine that every piece has a
And
story behind it.
Some of the other clothing, Susan Smith,
Mm-hmm.
who was the woman who drove her two children
Yes.
into the lake,
Yes.
volumes and volumes of letters and tapes between her and Richard. She definitely had a love affair going on with him.
Oh, really?
Absolutely, she was like really into Richie.
Wow.
And he would get sneakers,
Mm-hmm.
underwear, bras,
Oh my goodness.
T-shirts,
Yeah.
and some of it like the fancy frilly stuff that you wouldn't normally get in prison.
Mm-hmm.
What's that called? Who's the famous?
Oh, like Victoria's
Yes,
Secret.
yeah. So,
or
Richard was able-
Fredericks of Hollywood.
Yeah, he was able
yes.
to buy stuff and send it in.
Uh-huh.
She would wear it and then send it out.
Oh boy.
And then
Back
you'd
to
also
him.
have then you'd also have her actual prison clothes with the number on it,
Uh-huh.
etc.
Sure.
And then this one guy Bardo, who
Oh, he murdered
murdered the-
Dominic Dunn.
no, Bardo murdered the
Rebecca Schaefer.
the
Yes,
the
I'm
actress.
sorry, Rebecca Schaefer. Yes, in 1980, I believe it was 1989, August of 1989.
Forgive me
Yes.
if this sounds crude,
Mhm.
but he is a very crude man. I guess in older times, very special.
Mm-hmm.
So when you stand there looking at him, he just doesn't look normal.
Oh,
He looks very doofy, if that's the
Uh-huh.
right term. His arms are very long,
okay.
and in any picture, and I have many pictures of him. He would include pictures,
Mm-hmm.
signed pictures in with the letters to Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
He's just standing there with his arms at his side.
Okay.
It's a very unnatural look. Someone to be standing. Normally, if you're standing
So a
around,
lot of these
you might be like
killers-
this.
Yeah.
But he's just like that with a blank stare. and his feet were huge, something like a 13-inch sneaker.
Yeah.
And I have the sneakers. I
Oh,
some of his
wow.
clothes.
So these killers, like, wrote to Richard, your friend, right? But
Richard and
also
Barbara.
wrote to Barbara as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
She started with
Yes.
him,
Oh, okay.
and then at some point she said,
With Bardo.
"I had it."
Yeah.
No, started collecting with Richie,
Okay.
with the letters.
Okay. Yep.
And then at some point she just said, "Richie, I had enough of this.
Okay.
You can use my name, whatever, pretend the letter came from me, but I don't want to do this anymore." So then, let's say that lasted a couple of years, and then after that, he was on his own, and he was banging away letters and talking to these people.
Well, I find the Bardo case very fascinating. I mean, it's such a tragedy, what happened to Rebecca Schaefer, but if you have to look at the positive, some good came out of that because they really started to crack down on, these strangers that were contacting Hollywood actors and actresses and the availability of information. So, I like that they were able to come out with these stronger laws where you couldn't just contact these actors and get their mailing addresses and get their home addresses. So, as tragic as it was, there was some good, obviously, that in regards to the laws that came out of that. But what an awful
With the
tragedy.
stalking laws, right?
Yes, the stalking laws, yes. So let me ask you, have you ever personally, or have your friends ever personally received any negative feedback from people because of this macabre interest in the killers, per se?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a component out there that is absolutely against this whole thing of collecting anything from prisoners.
Yeah.
I mean, worse in the sense it's not someone who's a carjacker, but a murderer. And now they feel that murderer is now making money based on their story and writing letters and selling items and selling art. So that they're notorious and they're cashing in on their notoriety.
Well, yes, they're cashing in on their notoriety. I mean, but there are Son of Sam laws in place where they can't really profit off of their crimes. Am I correct?
Correct. And
Yeah.
I will confess ignorance to the fact I do not know what the state of those laws are now.
Okay.
Whether any have been repealed or made more difficult. But yes, as a result of all the stuff with Gacy and a lot of others selling
Yes.
their paintings, those laws came
Yes.
into effect.
Yes.
And but then they might have gone up and down and gone away. I don't know.
Yes. I guess the collectors, these people that are collecting, are obviously making money off of this. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. This is not something I am into, but obviously, I have a, true crime podcast, and I'm sure there are people out there that are interested in this and the stories behind it. I personally don't want to be attached to anything personally that's attached directly to a murderer. I am more about the victims and I don't know.
That's a present.
I know it's a present. This is a little tough to take. So it's
a
a coffee
coffee
cup
mug.
that says, part of my language, kiss my ass. But obviously, these were the last words of John Wayne Gacy before he went right to the chair. And
So, see, it's something
So,
for you to
yes.
celebrate. Think of it that way.
okay,
But,
I may have to give that one away. But
acceptable.
Yes,
I
yes.
I don't condone any of it.
oh no,
I
absolutely
simply
not. Yeah.
I could say all these people, all
Mm-hmm.
this stuff, the letter writers, these are people that have gone through the evolution of their life
Mm-hmm.
from the nice person to the animal to the murderer
Yeah.
to the convicted criminal
Mm-hmm.
to the term in prison.
Mm-hmm.
And these are all people from they call the heyday of the 20th century,
Yes.
the
Well,
late 1900s
yes.
of serial killers. And they're in jail now, serving out their life. And you can look at it as, well, what are they doing with that time? Do they repent? Do they deny?
Mm-hmm.
Do they just stay neutral to it?
Sure.
Because in the letters, over the thousands of letters, and the several hundred authors of those letters,
Mm-hmm.
it's fair to say that there are some that will continue to deny what happened.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
There are
absolutely.
some
Yeah.
that will
Yeah.
finagle as much as they can about what happens. Well, John Wayne Gacy would say, okay, so the body was in the trunk of my car, but somebody else had the keys to the trunk of my car. So he's coming up with all these cockamamie things.
Sure.
Remember, after he's been convicted and clearly shown to be the bad guy that
And
he
no
is.
remorse. Yeah.
And then you have others that will, like Susan Smith,
Uh-huh.
who in her letters clearly states she made a mistake, she's sorry, she misses her boys.
Well,
Okay,
I mean,
but the gate opened,
mistake.
the cow ran away. Oh,
Yes.
done.
Yeah.
But so you have this variety of reactions to
Yeah, I
them.
can think of a better word than mistake, or
Yeah.
a more harsh word than
when
mistake.
when they're
yeah.
sitting in prison
Yes.
and don't have too much else to do except
Mhm.
stare at the walls and think and think.
Talking about Gacy and talking about the story they came up with, the body just happened to be my car. I mean, I think that's what always gets to me, is how some of these stone cold killers can sit there and just look into a camera during an interview and completely deny their crimes. No remorse at all. I mean, there's nothing behind those eyes sometimes, and I think I get a shiver that just goes down my spine that these people are heartless, like they just have no conscience whatsoever.
They're sociopaths.
Yeah, we look.
Very
I
simple.
mean, let's talk recently about Joran Vandersloot, who was just brought back to the United States. I mean, I think about the torture that he put her family through.
yeah.
Natalie Holloway's mother. God bless Natalie Holloway's mother, but Beth Holloway. But what her family had to go through to get to the truth. I mean, for years, he would just give them the runaround and try to extort money out of them. And just, I mean, it compounds a tragedy so much more. So-
Where is it now? He has actually
He's back in
confessed,
Peru, yes. So
and
I
he
think...
said what he did with the body.
Yes,
and-
he did. He had signed an agreement. My understanding was that, he had a plea agreement where he would agree to confess to what actually happened to Natalie, and they added on to his sentence, but he is back in Peru now. But no remorse there whatsoever. He never had any remorse, and it's disgusting. It's just. But I can understand. Like I think most people, or at least for me, like I could never be like that. So hearing about these stories, I'm like, oh my goodness! Like trying to get behind the psychology or get into the psychology of it, that somebody could be and act so normal, and yet it's a mask. That mask hides all the evilness. It's scary, and that they walk amongst us. So I see that you have a letter there. If you want to talk a little bit about that letter.
Okay, so I think I wanted to add something about
Oh yes, please do.
me having this stuff. I kind of took on this role as the curator of the collection. It's as much intact as possible. A handful of the art stuff has been sold off to people who I trust why they bought it,
Okay.
what their intention was.
Yep.
Okay, and I still look at the letters as having a huge educational impact. And my goal is to have those letters in a doctoral program, a police program, some kind of PhD program of clinical or, what's the right word, the psychology, criminal psychology?
Sure.
Okay, is that, I'm drawing a blank.
Yes.
Forensic psychology,
Yes.
where some student can just dig into the letters and do a great doctoral dissertation on how these people tick.
Oh, sure. Yes. Yeah. Some positive can come out of it. Sure.
So
Absolutely.
I brought some stuff.
Yes. So let's talk
You
a little
said-
bit about
you
what
said
you
you had
have.
an interest because of the name Capone.
Yes, I do.
Which I won't reveal unless
yes.
you want to.
Yes. No. It's from.
Okay.
Yes.
So some murder, mob related stuff.
Okay.
They're
Okay.
different than the serial killers.
Sure.
And this one isn't necessarily mob. It's just
Uh-huh.
a bad guy, but a very famous bad guy. And his name is Robert Stroud.
The Birdman of Alcatraz.
He
Yes.
was. This letter was written in 1952,
Okay.
and he's giving advice to someone about their sick bird.
Wow.
based on, I'm sorry,
That's okay.
the information that that guy wrote, Robert Stroud. And then at the end of the letter, he starts talking about his own health, how he's failing in health. Interesting. I'm sorry.
That's
Can I get
okay.
a glass
Would you?
of water?
Sure, absolutely. Actually, I have a bottle of water here. It hasn't been opened, so please help yourself. The phone lines, I think, can we open up the phone lines? Sure. If anybody would like to call in with a question for David, phone number is 516-465-3990. But David's just going to share some artifacts that he has, some things that he's brought in. So,
This is
yes.
the Vincent Gigante booking card from when he was arrested and sent to, I guess it was Yonkers. Westchester County Department of Corrections.
Okay.
So this was Vinny the Chin Gigante.
Okay.
Who'd
I don't know
walk
if we
around
can
in
get
the
a good
street
shot of that. So, yes.
drooling and acting funny.
Okay. Yeah. So, if we can take a look. Yes. All right.
And because of the interest in Capone,
Yes.
this is a certificate of marriage from Al Capone and Mary
Yes.
Laughlin.
Yeah.
And so she was 20 and he was 20 at the time.
Okay.
He was, looks like a baker cutter. Is that
Interesting.
baker?
Yes.
Baker
Yes.
cutter.
Uh-huh.
And she was a nice one. What was she? Clerk. I
Clerk.
guess that's
Okay.
clerk.
Yes.
But because of their ages, the yeah, this is actually a certified copy from New York City.
Oh,
It's got
wow.
a stamp on it.
Can I
Oh,
pull
yeah,
that
of
up?
course.
Yeah. Let's see. So, she had to get permission. Is that my understanding?
Yeah,
Because she was so young.
these other
Wow.
documents
Wow.
are the letters, certificate of consent of Alphonse Capone, because he's under the age of 20, to Mary
Okay.
McLaughlin. And then I believe, I don't know if there's one in here for the daughter as
Oh,
well,
wow.
for the female.
Okay. Wow. So
But
yeah,
that's
I
just
mean,
cool stuff, you know.
yeah,
that's all, it's just,
there are a lot of people that are interested in the backstories and behind certain things, and
yeah.
yeah, obviously the mafia is a different sect of true crime.
Yes,
So yes.
but they were murderers.
Oh, absolutely.
Done.
Yes.
That-
At
right
the end
there.
of the day, there's no
They
question.
just had a different
Yes.
agenda.
Sure.
They knew the person and had an agenda to kill them, whereas
Yes.
the serial killers most likely just
Uh-huh.
randomly pick.
Oh,
This is
sometimes
sometimes, yeah,
random,
it's
yes.
a mixed bag. This is a ledger card from the business of Meyer Lansky.
nice. Well, I attend something called CrimeCon, which is a crime convention that's it's really focused on victims and crime victims' rights. It was held in Las Vegas last year in 2022, and Meyer Lansky the third, I believe, or the fourth, I believe it was Meyer Lansky the third, was there. He was the grandson of Meyer Lansky, and so he shared some pretty interesting stories. Very nice man. Got the opportunity to meet him. So, yes.
And here's a letter from David Berkowitz at the Sullivan Correctional Facility in
Okay.
Fallsburg, New York.
Mm-hmm.
And he writes, "Dear Richie, I hope all is well." A lot of David Berkowitz's letters really revolve with what's happening, current affairs.
Sure.
A lot of them do that. They just kind of talk about what's happening.
Can
for
I
the
just
day.
see that? Because, I mean, obviously, I saw the letters to Jimmy Breslin, the infamous letters. I mean,
Yeah.
his handwriting here doesn't look anything like, at least to me, the handwriting that was in, the Daily News or anything like that. Obviously, it's script,
Let's
but
see.
yes.
And then they did both. I brought one of each. That's a handwritten one, and this is a
Okay,
typed.
sure.
And then he just signed it, David.
Mm-hmm. Now, have you personally met or communicated with any killers at all? or- Okay.
One. I made an attempt.
Mm-hmm.
I sent because of David Berkowitz and Richie's really tight connection. Richie used to take David's father to visit the mother. at the grave.
Okay.
So he became a friend of the family in essence, and kind of took care of the father and took his father to see David.
Okay.
So,
Interesting.
where was I going with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so when I got this, I sent a letter to David Berkowitz to say, by the way, I have all the correspondence between you and one Richard Dickstein. And I just want you to know, I'm a very close friend of his, and I know you guys were friends, that you should be aware that he died. And I never got a response.
Okay.
So that was my one attempt. I didn't try again. And for whatever reason, he did not respond to that, acknowledging it.
Okay.
I don't care.
Okay.
Done.
Now, your friend Rich, remind me, he was a corrections officer?
Richard was the corrections
And
officer.
where did
yeah.
where was his jurisdiction? Where did
Up
he
in
work?
Westchester, Yonkers,
Okay.
Westchester.
Yes. Okay.
So here's stuff from Joel Rifkin, who's a local.
Local
Right.
Long Island serial killer,
So-
yes.
That would be, Dear Barbara, I'm stunned. They forwarded your letter to me a few days ago, and I was literally stunned wordless. I'm still, wow. You must feel devastated. I feel so bad for you. Okay, so I'm sorry. Here it is. She's writing about her cat, Muffin, who must have just died.
Okay.
So she tugged on his heartstrings a little bit,
Sure.
and he responded back
Okay.
about how sad he is that poor
Okay.
little Muffin is in the box. Okay. I wish you heart peace sincerely with all my love, Joel.
Okay.
And let's see what else is from Long Island. This looks like another one from
Oh, you have something from
Long Island. Yes, it's
Angelo,
Joel.
Angelo, correct?
Yes.
Richard
yes.
Angelo.
Okay, so there's
The
I brought several.
Angel of Death.
There's several
who-
letters from Joel Rifkin, and then this one is Angelo. So this is a typed letter.
So Richard Angelo
Richard.
was a nurse that worked at Good Samaritan Hospital here on Long Island, and he used to kill his patients, correct?
Yeah, he put them out of
Yes.
their misery.
Wow.
He did them a favor, right?
Oh.
That's the way he thought it would work.
I don't know.
Well, not in his head.
Yeah.
So these are letters from R.J. Angelo, Richard J. Angelo, and Dannemora. We had a discussion.
Yes.
He was at the
Dannemora.
famous Dannemora,
Dannemora, yes.
scene of a great escape.
Yes, and that was directed by Ben Stiller, the HBO special. I think it was like a 6-part series back in 2000. I want to say 2017, possibly. I think. I think Dannemora happened in 2013, so it
I
happened
don't know.
out a couple of years after the whole
And
scandal. But
this
that was
is-
an excellent series.
this is a rare one. I don't think there's too many letters from this character around, but it's the Colin Ferguson, the Long Island Railroad
Yes.
shooter
I remember.
over
I
in Garden
distinctly
City.
remember when that happened. Yes.
Yes.
So that was awful.
Yeah, just the prison pictures. This is, there was a true crime collector set, and Richie used to send the guys in the set a card and
Okay.
ask them to sign it and send it back. So
Okay.
this, for example, this would be Richard Ramirez
Oh.
signing
yes,
the back
the Night Stalker.
of his card, and there's his face.
Ugh.
And this is John Wayne Gacy.
I can't even.
And he signed it right across his
Sorry,
face.
I can't touch it. I yeah,
it's
it's all
okay.
good, but you know,
They're long
it's a
gone.
little too. I know.
The juju
I
is
know.
all gone.
Yes,
It's
this
buried.
is true. Actually, again, I think it was a Netflix special. The Night Stalker was excellent.
This is a little swatch of hair.
Hmm.
And I do have several swatches plus fingernail clippings from Norris.
Okay.
Norris and Bittaker.
Yes, yes.
I know it's
the,
not Long
Toolbox
Island, but I'm
Killer.
showing you because
Toolbox
it's
Killers, yes.
the hair.
Out in California.
And the famous Otis Toole,
Mm-hmm.
alleged, probably not true, to have something to do with the Adam Walsh.
Let's talk about that.
He confessed to a million things.
I know.
And he and his buddy, the other guy, used to get, someone was with him,
Mm-hmm.
and they used to take him and the other guy, maybe Juan Vega, I'm not sure,
Mm-hmm.
out on road trips to visit sites where they can say, well, we did this and we did that. And then they found out afterward a lot of the stuff that they were confessing to was really public knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a game that they were playing. I don't think they were that bad.
That case has always bothered. Well, for
That-
obvious
that's his hair,
reason.
by the way.
Yes.
That's the reason I
Okay,
brought it.
we can hold
Yeah.
that up. So I don't know if the audience can see it. There we go. All right. But that case always for obvious reasons. Adam Walsh case bothered me. Being the victim was such a young boy, but I think the thing that I've always tossed and turned with is who is his real killer, because there's been a lot of controversy about that, whether it was Otis Toole. There's been some talk that it could have been Jeffrey Dahmer, because
Really?
yes. Oh, you've never heard
No,
that?
I didn't know that one. But there's
So
huge separation.
well,
Distance.
Jeffrey Dahmer was actually living in Florida at the time that that Adam Walsh died, and he was actually seen in and around the mall that day. So he was living in Hollywood, Florida at the time.
Well, that's a good one.
Yeah. So I, through my interest in true crime and crime victims' rights, I spoke with someone, Stephen David Lampley, pardon me, and he is a behavioral specialist. He looks at behavior, human behavior and detection, and he also teaches classes on it. So I took one of his classes and on Jeffrey Dahmer. He's an expert on Jeffrey Dahmer, and he said that he did a whole history of Jeffrey Dahmer. It can't be proven that Jeffrey Dahmer killed Adam Walsh, but there is rumors out there. If you Google it, go home tonight and Google it, Jeffrey Dahmer, Adam Walsh, you'll get plenty of information on it. It's been speculated that possibly he's responsible for Adam's murder. Now, I've had the honor of meeting John Walsh, and he sticks with it that it was
Do they have
Otis
any
Toole.
DNA from the child's body?
I think that there was blood found in Otis Toole's car that can be matched to Adam Walsh.
Well, what
And,
about DNA on
good
the
question.
boy
Yes,
that can be
be
related
matched
back
to
to anybody else?
Yeah, I know. It's honestly, I'd have to go back and look and really research it again, because I'm not right now. I don't want to just speculate, because it's not familiar enough to me that I can say, oh yeah, they found this or they found that. I'd have to go back and really research it, but I know that yes, Otis Toole confessed to it. He's now deceased. He confessed to, what he did to Adam's body, which I won't get into the details. It's too gruesome, but there's always been speculation as to whether or not he actually was the killer, because as you said, he confessed to a lot of things, and he was known to confess and then retract his confession in jail. And, but I know the Walsh family does believe that he is responsible for their son's death. But I don't know awful. But over the years I've heard, and it's come as a surprise to me over the years, that I've heard that, Jeffrey Dahmer could possibly be involved in that. And I was like,
Yeah,
Jeffrey
I'm gonna
Dahmer?
look
Like,
I'll
Jeffrey
look into
Dahmer's
that
from
one.
Milwaukee. And they're like, oh, no. Look at his history. Look at his timeline. He was actually in Florida, Hollywood, Florida, at the time of Adam's death. So, But again, it's just speculative. Nothing has been proven. So
I'll show you a couple other goodies.
Yeah.
This is a Christmas card from John Wayne Gacy to Richie,
okay.
to wish you every happiness at this holiday season and throughout the coming year. Warm regards, John Gacy.
Mhm.
And the reason I brought this is because if you look at his hair at that time, it matches the splotch of hair
Okay.
that John
That's
sent him.
John
Gacy's hair.
Wayne Gacy's hair. Yes. Okay. Oh boy,
Likewise,
he was a.
This is hair of.
He never showed any sign of remorse
No,
up
not
until
at
the
all.
very end. So
This is hair from Charlie Manson.
okay. Oh boy.
And not with me today.
Now wait.
Oh,
Can
yeah.
you go back to that? I'm sorry. Is that a picture of?
Yes, at about the same time.
Okay, but that's a picture
We don't know
of.
who that is.
Oh, we don't know who that is.
No, I haven't been able to find
Okay.
out.
Well, can I hold this up for the camera, I guess? Hold it up so people can see. This is Charlie Manson's hair and a picture with an unidentified person there. So, yeah, the Manson case is always, I've been studying that case probably since I was about 8 years old. So, Yeah, I've been out to Spawn Ranch. I've been to California. I've been to the murder sites. I've spoken with
Interesting-
experts on the case.
Interesting
So,
thing
yeah.
is he never murdered anyone.
I know.
And you have to think
I
about
know.
this. He's so famous
Yeah.
just for being who he is.
Yeah,
But he never
I know.
committed
he got
the
his
crime.
minions to do it instead.
unreal,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. You know, they just let Leslie Van Houten out of jail. I guess that
Yes,
was
that's
back
recent.
in. That was actually the week that Rex Heuermann got arrested, because I remember it was Rex Heuermann got arrested on a Thursday, July 13th, and I think Leslie Van Houten got out of jail 2 days prior. I think it was Tuesday, July 11th. And you know, I that's a case I've always followed, and I've always felt that those killers should stay in jail for the rest of their life, and I was so angered by it. But then, of course, living on Long Island, Rex Heuermann gets arrested for Long Island serial killer case, so it was like, okay, I gotta kind of put this on the back burner right now, because I gotta focus on Rex Heuermann, you know, and just, but she is out of jail. She is a free woman, and she actually wasn't involved in the case at Cielo Drive with Sharon Tate and 4 others. She was with the Biancas, La Biancas.
Love.
Rosemary and Lena LaBianca, yeah. And she claims, even to this day, that like when she stabbed Rosemary LaBianca, 16 times or however many times, that she was already deceased. So that kind of makes her less liable in some way, because I guess
Not really.
yeah, because I guess stabbing somebody who's already dead isn't as bad as stabbing somebody who's alive. I don't know. Desecrating a corpse or whatever. I just I can't even begin to wrap my head around that rationale. So, but yeah, she's out there. She's free now. So interesting. But yeah.
So I got 2 more little things to show
Okay,
you. This one
all
is a signed John Gotti,
Oh wow! Look at that.
which I understood was difficult to come by.
Oh really?
I could be wrong, but that's what I heard.
He's not one to, when he was alive, to give signatures. Is that my understanding? Wow. Okay, we'll hold that up if people can see that. Yep. Okay.
And the last one is
Alright.
a card written by Joel Rifkin. No, sorry, Angelo, to Barbara Young, which was another alias that
Okay.
the Magic used.
I was gonna say they
So
didn't
this-
use their real names, I would imagine, right? When
No.
they
Those aliases.
smart.
In 1999.
Oh, look at that.
Pen artist. He
Okay.
used the name Pen Artist for some reason. Joel Rifkin, Pen Artist.
Oh, is that Angelo?
That's
or
what-
is
oh,
that,
sorry,
yeah,
sorry.
That's Angelo,
Angelo,
correct?
Angelo.
Okay.
Yeah.
So. alright.
R.J. Angelo.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, yeah, I screwed that up. Okay.
Okay.
So here's Barbara. There's a great big.
Oh my goodness.
For all you are, for all you do, for loving me, for being you. I love you and I always will. Forever and ever. Love always, Richie.
Wow.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Alrighty then.
So, they had quite a bit of time on his hands
Okay.
to
Yeah.
do
I
these
guess
things.
so.
And I have quite a bit of his art. It's really very thin, like with a black, almost like a fountain pen.
Okay.
Really beautiful stuff.
Okay.
He's a good artist.
All right. Well, I guess he had that going for him. I don't know.
And he's
Yeah.
got the time to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We do have one question that came in.
Okay, let me put my headphones
No, it's not a full. It's not a. It's just a
Okay.
comment.
Okay.
Do you have anything from Robert Schulman?
Robert Schulman was a Long Island killer, yes.
That doesn't
Early
sound familiar.
90s. Yeah. He was a mailman, I believe, and
Let me
yes.
just see the name if it's in
Okay.
here.
So you have your own website as well, where you
Yes, it's-
document everything that you
actually-
have.
Not to plug it, but the website,
okay.
you said it before, serialkillermotorabilia.com.
Okay.
If you go there, there's a list of all the names of the people in the collection.
Okay.
So go to that site and just scroll
Yep.
down and look for the name
All right.
Schulman, and you may find it.
Okay. Okay.
No, I don't see. I
All
have
right.
a list here, but I
Okay.
can't find it.
All right. So, any other questions or no? Oh, that was it. Okay. Oh, let me ask you about that pin that's on your lapel. What is that pin?
That's a PP, past president pin, of the Society of American Magicians, Parent Assembly number 1. So Harry Houdini was the first president of of the first assembly. He was the first president.
Okay.
And there's assemblies all around the world, but the Parent Assembly was in New York City, and I, as a knife thrower who performs in magic venues, for example, Monday Night Magic in New York City,
Nice.
I'm part of the magic crowd, even though I'm not a magician.
Okay.
So I joined the Parent Assembly, and I became its president back in I think 2014, and I was the 74th president, Harry being the first.
Wow, very nice. So let's talk a little bit about your knife throwing experience. Like, when did you start getting into professional knife throwing?
Ooh. Okay. There's an introduction. that
Okay,
leads
please
into
do.
I started using this on stage about 20 years ago, and it evolved, and then I moved away from it for some reasons. But so the MC would introduce this next act, which would say it's not magic, but it's magical,
Okay.
because I'm not going out there doing magic.
Sure.
I'm throwing knives around the human target. So we'd walk on stage, and I'd say, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My real name is the Reverend Dr. David Adamovich, retired professor with a doctorate in exercise physiology, paramedic, pool hole owner, professionally trained chef, ordained minister. And in my spare time, I throw knives.
Alrighty.
My friends call me Throw." And that would be the introduction, and I'd turn and throw.
Okay.
And then just open the act. But I was a professor in sports sciences, and I taught exercise physiology,
Oh, wow.
electrocardiography, and biostatistics.
Okay. Where did you teach that?
Every college in this area.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay.
I was super specialized. That's an understatement, in electrocardiography.
Wow.
So,
And what is
The
electrocardio?
little
Okay.
squiggle
Okay.
in the heart.
Okay.
You see it on the side of ambulances. And
Sure.
everything else. And so I wrote like a 440-page textbook on how to read that. That textbook became the standard all over in the graduate exercise physiology programs. So they used to use me to teach what was in my book. in
Okay.
those courses.
Quite a Renaissance man. You have quite a background,
I've
huh?
been called that 1,000 times. Thank you. I didn't even elicit. It came by itself.
I look
yes.
at your background and everything that you're into. My goodness,
I
so
think
much.
if I did have a
very
gravestone,
interesting.
it would say Renaissance
Something else.
man.
So, do you currently perform right now?
Yeah,
Yes.
I've
Do you want to
been-
share with the audience
Uh,
where we can catch your act?
Let me lead right into this.
Okay.
So after 18 years, I left that. I went to emergency medicine management. Did that for about 4 or 5 years. Then I opened a pool hall. A customer came in
Okay.
and showed me a throwing knife. And I was 55 years old at the time.
Wow.
And it was the first time I had seen a throwing knife.
Okay.
I didn't know what it was. He said,
Uh-huh.
"Oh, look, my son-in-law gave me this." We stepped outside the pool room. We went to a tree on the church property across the street. We both threw it. His slapped off, mine stuck, and I said, "Hey, Joe, I can do this." 9 months later, I was a world champion.
Wow.
And then
Okay.
I threw in competition for 5 years. I met a performer, Chris McDaniel, who wanted me to teach him to do knives in his Wild West show. He's a trick roper, bullwhip artist. And Chris said to me, "Stop the bullseye busting. You're an artist. Let's make a stage show." So after 5 years in competition, some 22 years ago, I did my first act on stage, and that's all I've basically done ever since.
Wow.
So I'm
Very
I'm
nice.
just going into my 22nd year on stage.
Well, good for you. That's
And I've been in
great.
circuses all around the world.
Uh-huh.
My resume is that thick.
Wow.
As a
Sure.
knife thrower, I've done a lot of created stunts that no other artists have done. And probably the ultimate one is a veiled double wheel of death. You know this
Yes,
the round spinning
yes,
wheel?
yes.
Okay, it's 6 feet wide
Okay.
on an axle, and normally there's one girl on it. And back in 1938, and since 38, 3 before me, ending in the 70s, ever did it veiled. meaning a paper veil you cannot see through in front of the target girl on the wheel. I became the fourth artist to do that in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And about 3 years later, 2013, I upped the ante by putting two girls on the veiled wheel,
Oh, wow.
covering them with paper and
Wow.
spinning it really fast and throwing knives, two knives per turn.
Wow.
And it was such a big deal that Ripley's Believe It or Not picked it up and gave me like a 2-page spread
Mm-hmm.
in their centennial edition,
Mhm.
which was a big deal. Only so many people were going to be important enough in their eyes to be in the centennial edition. 4 people got a 2-page spread.
Wow.
I was one of them. Quite happy about it.
Wow.
And upcoming next weekend, I'll be at the House of Yes in Brooklyn.
Oh, very nice.
Very progressive venue. I'll just
Okay.
leave it at that in case
Okay.
anybody's interested.
All right.
I will be clothed,
Uh-huh.
but
Okay.
some of the others less.
All righty then.
Just to
Okay.
get that out on the table.
Now, you also perform at the Borgata, correct?
Yes, I
Okay.
did the Great American Variety Show
Okay.
at the the Borgata Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City.
Okay. Very nice.
And now in 4 weeks, I will be out in South Dakota for the Cirque Dreams story,
Oh, really?
which
What's
is like
that?
really driving me over the top. I'm way over the moon on this one.
Okay.
If you can just imagine Cirque du Soleil,
Mhm.
that style circus,
Sure.
having a little personal time with the Radio City Music Hall Christmas Spectacular. And then you shake those two up in their little personal bottle and you spill something out. And
Okay.
that combination is what this show is like.
Wow.
It's a stage show in a huge theater,
Mhm.
in the Momentum Theater or the Monument Theater, something like that, in Rapid City, South Dakota.
Okay.
2 shows a day on a Saturday and a Sunday in December. And they decided they would put a knife thrower into this.
Why not?
And I
Let's
said,
just
I
throw
know,
that
okay,
in the
come
mix.
on, you got like a Rockette style show
Okay.
with Cirque du Soleil kind of artists.
Mm-hmm.
And where's the knife thrower come in?
Okay.
They said, well, we envision the knives being icicles, and we're going to work that into
interesting.
the story.
Okay.
But I don't know much more about the show yet.
Okay.
I'm just signing contracts and shipping boards out there.
All righty.
Getting ready
Very
to
nice.
do that.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, I first saw you actually on News 12. You were interviewed, I believe, on News 12, correct? Not
For the
too
serial
far.
killer stuff or the knife
Yes,
thrower?
yes, for the serial killer stuff.
Because I've
or,
done both with knife
Oh, yes. But I think I had seen you in a news brief not too long ago, maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, with regards to Rex Human.
Yes.
And they had asked you about his collection of guns, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Did you want to talk a little bit about that? Or
Well,
yeah.
it's a funny story to that.
Okay.
When they did, I forgot that it was one of the main newscasters
Yes.
of News 12.
Mhm.
He came, and I set up some art for him, and he did it. And when the story aired, it was the infamous Long Island Man something, like Florida Man. But Florida Man.
No, I
Look it
don't-
up.
Okay.
I'll go no
Okay.
further.
All right.
But the Long Island Man or LI Man has this collection, blah blah blah. And then before that, there was another piece that I did with them, with me as a knife thrower.
Okay.
And I threw around some of their interviewers. Okay? So
Wow.
more
Okay.
recently now, let's say in the last 3 years or so, I'm on their radar as the serial killer guy on Long Island. So like you
Alright.
have now something happened, the human thing kicked all the dust off, now it's on the front burner. So they're anxious to get a sound bite from anyone
Uh-huh.
that can be considered a specialist in that area.
Okay.
So that's, and
All right.
in some sense I am being aware of this
Yes.
and owning this. It's the largest collection in the world.
Sure.
I have a reputation.
So you
Okay.
do have the actual largest collection in the world.
Yes,
Yes. Okay.
yes, without a doubt.
All right. Very nice.
And so they asked me about the guns.
Yes.
His wife was trying to get the guns back.
Yes.
And the questions were, are they worth more now?
Mm-hmm.
Will they be worth more? And I said, yes, they're worth more now, even though he hasn't been convicted. There is a notoriety attached to his property,
Mm-hmm.
which are those guns. Even though he didn't use them
Mhm.
in the crime,
Sure.
they're his guns, his car,
Mm-hmm.
his anything.
Sure.
Okay. Oddly enough, I have the same blue Avalanche that he does. How coincidental.
Okay.
We'll leave that alone.
Okay.
So and then the question was, will they be worth more? I said, well, once he's convicted, if he is, yes,
Mhm.
they'll be worth more.
Mm-hmm.
And
Even
then-
if he's
then-
not convicted, though, I would
Yeah,
assume
yeah,
that regardless, because
And
he's
so then the
so
question
infamous.
becomes over and over, well, what are they worth? And I have to give the simplest answer, it's the most honest answer. They're worth what the owner is willing to let them go for, and the buyer is willing to pay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and again, just those are very strong words
Sure.
that say a lot,
Sure.
and there's no beginning and no end to that statement.
Mm-hmm.
It could depend on how hard up someone is at the moment for money, and willing to sell whatever they have to the first person that comes along. Or they'll say, I don't need to sell this right now, I'll wait till I hear a few more offers.
Mm-hmm.
There's no blue book on this. It's what those two people are willing to agree on, that it's worth the sale and worth the buy.
Okay. So here's my question, though. I mean, the police went in for weeks. They were in Rex Human's house, and they were collecting evidence. So maybe I'm being naive here. I don't know the answer to this question. I should, but I don't, unfortunately. Like, were all those guns taken into evidence?
Yes,
Okay,
I
so
believe they all were.
once they're taking it into evidence, my understanding is she wouldn't have access to them to sell anyway, correct?
Well, I think her point is, they've made it clear that the guns were not part of the crime.
Well,
So-
the police have made that clear?
I think so.
okay.
I think they're going down that path.
Okay.
That
all
none
right.
of the girls were shot. They were,
Uh-huh.
their
Okay.
bodies were in another
Okay.
state other than finding them shot.
Yes. Well, I
So they
mean, it
can't- they
hasn't been
couldn't tie-
proven yet. I mean,
Okay.
I think we're just scraping the surface on this case. I mean, I think there's a lot more. They're going to be digging further and deeper, and it you know. But I think this is just the
Which
beginning.
might be why they're not willing
Yes.
to let them go just
Yeah,
yet.
yeah. I
They're saying,
mean,
well, we're not
because we
convinced.
don't know down the road. You know, I mean, we're looking at these crimes here in New York, but I understand that he traveled, so we
you go
don't
to
know the
Vegas?
scope and sequence of his crimes, supposed crimes, because he hasn't been convicted yet. But we don't know where he's traveled and what he's definitely been connected to yet. So I would think that the police would want to hold on to that cash. and
I think there was
guns.
some connection
Yes.
with him going to Vegas.
Yes, he
and
did
some
have
crimes
he
that
did
were
have
committed
property
at that time in Vegas.
Yes, he did have property in Vegas. I know that he had a condo in Vegas. He has a brother down in South Carolina. You know, so I know the police are still, it's an active investigation. I know police are looking into that. I don't know if he's been tied yet to crimes in Vegas. I know that that has come up, but nothing's definitive yet as far as I know. So, you know. But interesting. What is your take on Rex? Do you want to share any thoughts or?
It stinks.
Yeah, well, obviously, yes. But,
Yeah, I think he's got a lot ahead of him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out, and you know, other victims that may be tied to him. So at this point, you know, so yeah. But I think this is the beginning. I think you know we're talking about it now. Who knows where people will be, where this investigation will be, and what people will be talking about a year from now. You know, so and what may I mean, I feel like, you know, every few weeks more information is coming out, more things are being discovered. I mean, there was something in News 12 today. My understanding is that Asa Ellerup is now talking with media, with Peacock Channel, about doing some kind of live streaming about her story. So, you know, that'll be interesting. So anyway, but I do want to thank you for coming in tonight and for sharing all of this. It's definitely the darker side of true crime, but obviously there's an interest. You know, people are interested. There are collectors out there, so I don't happen to be one of them, but but it's, you know, it does get people's interest, and especially the stories behind all of the artifacts. So,
Yes.
but thank you for sharing your expertise. Thank you for sharing stories. So
You're
I
welcome.
really appreciate your coming in and spending time and sharing all this with everyone. So this is my True Crime Obsession checking out. I want to thank everyone for watching and for your support. And thank you. And keep watching. And, there'll be more good things to come in the future. And I hope everyone has a great night. So this is my True Crime checking out. Take care, guys. Thank you. Bye.